Talking today to Neil Donell of Chicago. They have a new album out. The first album of new non-Christmas studio album content, I should say, since 2014. This is Born for This Moment. If you're doing the math, would be Chicago XXXVIII 38. Out as of July 15th. Been listening to it over the weekend. The first question for you is about the creation of this. And I've been reading some interviews with Robert Lamb about how it came about. Out of like writing material, and then suddenly there's this idea to do a project. So how did you learn that there was going to be a full studio album project for Chicago?
Well, the process began actually in 2020 when Robert Lamb and Jim Peterick, Jim, ex of Survivor and the Ides of March, got together and they collaborated and they started to do some songwriting together, which they had always hoped to do, but just not had the opportunity because of busy schedules. So they wrote a song called Everything Is Going to Work Out Fine. And they sent the track up to me where I live in Toronto, and I cut the vocals for it. And they just put it out there, and it started to get airplay. It started to spread around in various formats. And that sort of piqued the ears of Joe Thomas of BMG Records, who had, sort of kept track of the band for some time. And he heard the song, and he heard something, obviously, that appealed to him, something new and fresh, and approached Robert and said, would Chicago be receptive to perhaps doing a new project? And, everybody sort of being idle, being shut out and shut down because of COVID, heartily agreed. And we all found out about it that way. And then the process began of everybody had been writing songs and staying as creative as they possibly could in the downtime. And it just led to that place where, okay, we're going to do a record, and BMG is going to put it out and promote it, and we all got very excited about it.
How long of a process was the entire creation of these songs dedicated for the album? And by that I especially mean like recording it, getting your parts and everything. How long? About when did that start, and how long did it go until?
I'm going to take a guess now because I sort of lost track of time, because we started touring again in June of 2021, and we were still in the process of recording and assembling the material. So it started, I would say, in the fall in earnest of 2020, and probably went for about a year in total, around that. We started, when we went back on tour, we had to sort of wait until we had a little breaks to go back and address things, and eventually it got done. So yeah, about a year, I'd say.
Okay. How does the process go? And you alluded to it a little bit with the song, with the track from Robert and Jim, but doing all of your parts remotely now. Again, as I understand, one of the tracks, I think, was "If This Isn't Love," was the one that was done kind of more collectively as a band. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what I read in some of the interviews. Or how did that?
From my perspective, yeah, that song demo was created by Joe Thomas and three other writers in Chicago, and I remember receiving a demo of it. And, it had been acknowledged by everyone that this was a good song, and this was one of the ones that was going to go on the record. So it was still done because of COVID, because we couldn't all assemble and it was difficult to travel. The only things that really got done in one room were the horns on a bunch of tracks. Jimmy, and Ray Herman and Lee all gathered at Lee's recording studio in Sedona, Arizona. But everything else was kind of done, separately. I did every single vocal track that I cut was cut in Toronto with my recording engineer, Chad Urshik. And on that particular song, I remember, it was a lot of fun. And it just kept evolving. And at the end of the day, when we were done, my recording engineer, I remember him saying to me over the talkback, he said, that you've done 22 vocal tracks for this song now? I sort of lost track, But so, I did everything, all the vocals. I wasn't in another studio other than the one I was in Toronto. So everything that I did was done separately. I am not, to be honest, even to this day, I'm not sure where everything was done. it was just kind of assembled, a lot of file sharing, tracks going back and forth, and but it turned out great, and Joe Thomas did a wonderful job, and had to have the vision and oversee everything, and of course with the kind of writing caliber of Robert and Jimmy and Lee involved, as well as some other writers who were involved. It's a nice collection of great songs.
Yeah, the mix is really well done. You can't tell that this is an assemblage. It's not a Frankenstein monster sort of situation here. It sounds like it's, in many cases, like it could be a complete band all in the studio at once, maybe recording their parts at once, but in the studio at the same time, you don't know that it is done as remotely as it is done. So he did a great job of mixing.
He absolutely did. It was a real labor of love, because there were so many tracks and so many files going back and forth. It really was hard to keep track of things.
When you get material to sing, how fleshed out is the song? Was it a similar process each time? Is it at different levels? How does that go? And do you already hear Is it demo parts of this could be where this would go, but it's like a synthesizer version of that? What do you get at what point of the creation process when you had to put down your vocal?
Well, it varies from song to song, as you can well imagine. Some things there's a pretty definitive template that's sent to me. Other places I was given a lot of license. Even when there was a template, I was given a lot of license. To interpret it as I saw fit. And my approach is very much like the band's approach. I do things that I hope will support the emotional content of the lyric, as that's the way they write. And a lot of the subject matter that's addressed in the various lyrics is very personal. So it's easy to get inside of, but I guess to answer your question in essence, it really was quite variable, but the band and producer Joe Thomas, they trusted me a lot, so they essentially allowed me to be myself and put my own spin on things where I thought it was appropriate.
Well, you have your own writing on it as well. Safer Harbors. Describe the writing of that song.
Safer Harbors is it's one of those songs that I think every parent can relate to. It's the story of seeing your children leave home and wishing that they have that they have a better life and a less difficult life than you have, and try to protect them. And of course, that's folly. You really can't do that. They have to stand or fall on their own 2 feet. And it's one of those songs that I wrote that was almost like it was channeled to me. I think back in the lyric, just the other night we were flying someplace, and the lyric ran through my head, and I thought to myself, where did that come from? And it just came from my heart and my own life experiences and my family's background of living by the sea and on the sea and from the sea, and it just sort of spilled out of me. It's almost sometimes when I'm writing, it's like I have a giant funnel on the top of my head. I'm just open and receptive to whatever is channeled from me. And a lot of other writers will tell you that too. Sometimes things you have to labor on, but sometimes things it's as if they're channeled to you. And Safer Harbors was one of those things that came quite easily to me.
And what I love about it too is that it can be, in my interpretation, I was listening to it for the third time this morning just before the interview, and I can go literal or figurative on that. I can think of it literally and okay, I have a 1-year-old daughter, and there's a long ways to go before a lot of the meaning of that, but that's going through my head. But then figuratively, I'm like, well, if I didn't know that in advance, I could apply that to a lot of other things in life, which is wonderful that I don't come out of that thinking, okay, this is very much this story. It can, to me, I get the impression that while there is an intent, as you were just describing, a lot of people could take away a lot of different meanings from that song.
Absolutely. And, that is something that songwriters attempt to do, using another nautical term. You try to cast a wide net, and then you don't get too specific with things sometimes, and just so that people's own imagination and own life experiences can interpret in the way that fits and suits them and resonates with them.
Well, as I was reading some of the previews of the album, and I see this particular name associated, which I'm going to get to in a few seconds. And then I start listening through the album, and Someone Needed Me the Most comes on. I'm like, is this the? But at the end, there's Bobby Kimball. Like, where did this come from? And knowing of his work with Toto, obviously over the years, and the voice that he has, and I know he's retired for health reasons, but there's this voice, and I was so pleased to hear that. How did Bobby Kimball become part of this project?
Well, I guess I should let the cat out of the bag and tell you that song was written some time ago, and as a demo, I believe that it was recorded in Nashville. Some time ago when Bobby was still in good voice, and he's unfortunately had to deal with some fairly severe hearing issues, which has been very impactful on his ability to perform. So it was some time ago that Bobby actually did those vocals. This is not something he did recently, even within the last 5 years. It goes back some time now. But the song was written and recorded in a demo fashion, I'm going to say perhaps even 15 years ago. And it just kind of stood the test of time, and somebody remembered it. It was a co-write with Jimmy and a gentleman named Greg O'Connor and another gentleman whose name escapes me right now. And it was a good, strong song, and it got resurrected, and under careful scrutiny and consideration was included on the record.
And it does sound good. It matches right in, and yeah, as someone who kind of also likes the music of Toto and likes the music of Chicago and everything, and knowing there's a bit of a connection between the two bands in terms of instrumentation and somewhat, I thought, well, that's actually kind of a nice touch there. So, I was very pleased to hear that. That was a nice thing on the album. What is your favorite song to sing on this album of the 14 cuts?
Boy, that's, as you can well imagine, that's a tough question. We have been performing the single, If This Is Goodbye, for about, 4 months now, well in advance of the record being released. And I'm having a lot of fun doing that. It's been interesting to watch how audiences have, over time, because they've been hearing it on the radio and in different streaming situations, how they have grown to like it. And, it's difficult for bands of like Chicago and bands of this ilk to perform new material. Audiences are expecting a greatest hits show. That's what they're there for. So when you inject something new into the set, you take a chance. But over the last month or two, when Jimmy comes up and announces the song before we play it, audiences respond. They start applauding, knowing that they're going to hear it. So that's a fave. I really enjoy that. But gosh, everything on the record was a lot of fun to do. There's talk, depending on what's chosen going forward as a next single, there's talk of doing 2 or 3 other pieces from the record, and I'll have a lot of fun. For me, it's great because on this record, I got to show a little more of my vocal range as opposed to singing always in my high tenor range. There's a few places like Firecracker and the title track, Born for This Moment, and Safer Harbors, where I'm in sort of a more of a middle tenor range as opposed to the higher register. And I get to explore, even in the verses of This Is Goodbye, a warmer aspect of my voice in those verses. So it's really a lot of fun for me, and I'm very grateful for it.
Last question for you. Your thoughts on now having your voice imprinted on the canon of non-Christmas Chicago material. Of course, you were on Chicago Christmas recently, but in terms of the new studio material, and those are the touchstones, if you will, of Chicago music, and now you're part of that. What do you think? How do you feel as a vocalist that now you can point to this, Born for This Moment? I'm one of the singers on this album.
Well, as you can well imagine, I consider it a great honor. When the band first called me and asked me to join them, it was the fall of 2017. I officially started touring with them in January of 2018. And I remember going individually up to Robert and Lee and Jimmy and manager Peter Chiavarelli and thanking them, for taking a chance on me, because it was a little different having a tenor voice in the band who wasn't also a bass player. And I said, I expressed my gratitude to them, and I said I will do my utmost to live up to this honor, to honor this great material that you spent a lifetime producing and writing and creating, and how these songs are so meaningful. They're milestones in a lot of people's lives, and of course, that's a big responsibility to carry on stage every night, because people are used to hearing it, and the band they have put their faith in me, and I told them I would just do everything in my power to live up to that faith. And I've always had a mind that you need to honor your gift. Everybody's been given gifts in their lives. As the old expression goes, some people just never unwrap their gift. But I found out what it was at an early age, and I made a pledge to honor the gift that I was given. And so back to square one here, it was never like a dream come true or a goal for me. I just wanted to take this musical gift that I was given and honor it, do the best I could personally with my own talent. And the fact that this came to me at this point in my life, I was approached by these wonderful gentlemen who I've admired and respected for years, and who turns out are just some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. It's a family. It's a big family. So I'm just incredibly grateful and honored that they've called upon me to do this for them, and they are my friends and my family, and that's how I feel.
And it's a cool album. Definitely give it a listen. If anyone listening to this hasn't, do so. Born for This Moment, Chicago, the 38th album in the Chicago. It's not far to go till 40. I think it's going to be coming pretty soon here. That'll be a talk about a moment, whatever that's going to be. I don't know if it'll be a live, a compilation, a new, whatever. Chicago. So I'm doing the Roman numerals on that. That would be that's LV or it'll XV. We'll know when it comes. Neil Donell, thank you for taking time to chat this morning. Enjoy the rest of the tour. Enjoy the promotion of this album and all the rest going down the road with the band.
Luke, you were great. Thank you